and welcome to the Brown Girls Guide podcast, where we discuss everything we wish we knew growing up. This is episode 5 of season 4, if I'm not mistaken. Good evening, Amber. Good day. Hello, how are you?
Good evening. I am good. How are you doing? I know you have a bit of a cough. What's been happening? What's going on?
Nothing new in my life, really, to be honest. Nothing new. Just came back from holiday, which was great. It was much needed. It was very busy, though. So the holiday was much needed. And yeah, I'm ready to tackle the week. Or say myself.
So I guess it's safe to assume you're not drinking anything this evening.
I'm not. I'm having lemon water because I'm feeling a little bit ill. So I'm having lemon water. I was gonna drink something. I had it already. Well, it's in the fridge. And then when I took it out, I realized that my fridge had actually frozen over. So my drink was frozen. So I couldn't have that. Are you drinking anything tonight?
I am. I'm having a glass of Pinotage. It's the Van Leeuwen one, if I'm not mistaken. And it's my second one for the day. So
is it cold in Joburg? It's cold in Joburg.
It is so miserable in Joburg. It's not too cold. I think it's going to be colder tomorrow, which is Monday. But today, it's just been raining all day. Just continuous grey skies, raining. Just not what I am used to during the month of March or April. I'm so shocked.
Yeah, because the sun was shining wonderfully today in Cape Town.
Oh my God.
And tomorrow as well, but on Tuesday it's supposed to rain, so we'll see. I mean, winter is around the corner, so that's fine. But Amber Lambs, I feel like this is a good topic to discuss today. Today's topic is all about toxic work environments. And I feel I don't know about you, but when you are younger, you don't realize that such a thing even exists. I don't know if you ever heard about toxic work environments when you were growing up, perhaps?
No, because I've never, everyone around me in my life hasn't had an office working environment growing up. My mother was a teacher, but a lot of my family works in the medical field, so they work in hospitals or dentist office. So it was never a discussion about office culture and 9 to 5 sitting with the same kind of people in one space every day.
Yeah.
So I never knew what that would mean to be in a toxic work environment. I knew what it meant to be stressed and overworked, but not toxic, And you?
No, never. Maybe my dad is in the Navy, so I don't know what kind of work environment that is. But it isn't really something he ever spoke about. But my mom, maybe she was stressed in a work environment, but she never spoke about it openly. It was never something that we discuss as much as we discuss it now. And it is an important discussion because I think people need to be able to identify when they are in a toxic work environment and perhaps the best way to get out of it. So,
for sure.
On that note, could you maybe give us an example? You don't have to name names or anything.
I will. No, I'm joking.
Can you give us an example of a toxic work environment that you were in? And did you realize it at the time? Or is it only once you got out that you realized it was toxic?
I think before I answer, I will say that I think toxic environments are so prevalent in industries like ours, just because especially agency lifestyle, or not even just agency, anything within comms and PR and marketing and advertising.
Yeah.
There's always this expectation for you to constantly be on and creative and hustle and pushing the needle, or you always have to be doing more or going above, finding something new and exciting to do. So I think it's very, I don't use the word hectic, sounds okay now, but it's more hectic and I think more prevalent in the media space that we work in. That's just my opinion. I'm not sure if it's true, but it's my opinion. But yes, I've been in several toxic working environments, and for the most part, when I was younger, I didn't realize it. I just thought this is how it's supposed to be. Because I mentioned in another podcast episode that I think we spoke about like The Devil Wears Prada and like how that age of like that time of movies really inspired me to like study either journalism or PR or events and like
Yeah.
just to be in that media space, like to have a Devil Wears Prada moment. And in that movie, like as much as Andy like she moved up in her career, it was a toxic work environment. Like it's all consuming. And so I thought to myself, like, oh my God, like this is, the kind of lifestyle I want one day. Like
Yep.
I want to be like super busy, like one event to the other, ticking things off on a to-do list, impressing the editor, impressing the boss. So that's what I had in mind. So when I was in that situation, when I was younger, one of the first agencies I worked for, I just kept saying yes to everything I had to do. I was happy to drive around, do drops, all these unnecessary things that weren't necessarily part of my job. But because I felt like I was living my Andy life, like I had to do it. Like an example of what I used to do was I had to go in early in the morning, and it was my responsibility to like clean and like wash the dishes and like
No.
sometimes
No.
I swear, like clean and sometimes like prepare meals, like that kind of thing. Like it was
You
full
prepare
on, like
meals.
yes, like prepare meals. Um, so it was, and at the time I was like, oh, I'm getting on the train at 6:45 because I've got like a cool, like job. Looking back, I'm like, girl, what are you doing? Like, no, like it's not cool at all. And another agency that I worked for, like we would also have to do a lot of things that weren't part of our scope of work, but because you feel like you're getting exposure in the industry, like, and
Yeah.
also being a woman of color plays a huge role in it because you feel like you have to work twice as hard
Yeah.
to get
You're right.
recognized, and you don't want to come across as lazy. You want to prove yourself. You want to show you can do it.
You also don't
So
want
when
to
I
come
worked,
across as like angry or bossy.
yes, and you don't want to push back. Like this time I
Yeah.
was what, like 22, 23. I don't want to push back at people and say, that's not part of my job. And then you're like, oh, she's not a team player. She's
Yeah.
not a go-getter. So whenever like things were asked of me, I used to just do them, And I wonder if the experience was the same for you because you started out in journalism. But what is it like when an environment is toxic in a traditional like newsroom or like editorial space?
I think for me, it was very different. I think, like, I have to say that I wasn't in a typical newsroom. Well, I was never in a newsroom because I went straight into magazines out of university, and so that was quite different. And it wasn't like your Cosmos of the world, although I have heard some things about that. But anyway, it was. I worked for a magazine that is in that predominantly caters to men. It's like a men's interest magazine. And that brought with it its own set of toxic traits, shall I say.
Oh
And
God, was it like a boys' club?
it was a boys' club, but it was also like, it's not something I realized at the time because it was my first job. So I just thought this is the way things are done. And so, like, there were loads of inappropriate jokes made about anything and everything.
Mm.
And it was like, I always felt like I had to prove myself as like one of the only women on the team, one of the only women on the team, because there were only two of us at the time. And it was just, I didn't realize how toxic it was while I was in it. I just thought that that's the way it is, that you just
Yeah.
like roll with it, roll with the punches. You kind of have to be like one of the boys. And so you also make the jokes and you also do this. But it was a lot of that. And it was, there wasn't very good communication in that job, I would say. Yeah, and it was such a pissing contest for a lot of the time. It's just like who was like the quickest, and if ever there was a track day, I was just like, oh my God, I don't want this particular one because you just know that everyone is just going to want to beat the next one, and then if you lose, it's like it's there was a lot of things that came with it. But in the moment, I didn't realize it was a toxic work environment until I moved to my next job, which was the opposite. Um,
Mm.
so looking back on it, I can say that there was such a toxic work environment. And not only that, because it was my first job in like out of university or college or tech, whatever you want to call it, it was like such a formative experience for me. So a lot of the the self-doubt that I have now and a lot of the imposter syndrome that I have now is a result of that job. Because I always
Yeah.
thought I wasn't good enough, that I would never, and I knew that and I knew to some degree, like I wasn't the most knowledgeable about things in that industry, but yeah, so
Did you ever speak up? Did you ever say anything?
no ways, no way, no ways. It was also, okay, I'm going to bring race into it. It's also a very white male dominated space.
Mm, mm.
So not only did I not like speak up as a woman, I didn't want to speak up as a woman of color either because I think we've said this before on like a previous episode. You're just happy for like a seat at the table.
Yeah.
And you
You're just
just
happy to be nominated.
yeah, it's like I'm just so honored to be nominated. But I never spoke up because I never realized that things were going wrong or that things were wrong, not going wrong. And then towards the end of it, I had a colleague who's also a friend, I guess. So she started like speaking up more and more about I'm just gonna say that it was a motoring title. And so like you'd have like test cars like in the fleet at a time, like for 2 weeks at a time or like 1 week at a time. And they'd be like everything from like a Toyota Yaris to an Audi R8 at any given point or whatever.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And when like one of us would, and so you'd have to like write your name on a board and like say which car you'd like to take home for the evening if you haven't yet driven it. So if one of us wanted like one of the faster cars or like more powerful cars, then like one of the guys would always say like, oh, like be careful, that's a fast one. And it was a very like patronizing environment. And my colleague
Annoying.
it was very annoying. But I didn't realize it at first until my colleague like started speaking up about it. And once like she started speaking up about it, I was like, yeah, that's like fucking annoying. Like, and it's like patronizing. Like, why should we be treated differently because we are women? If anything, we are more careful drivers than the guys. So it was a lot of that went on there. And I think and there was no like hustle culture or like working late or working hard or just any of those things. It was like the toxic masculinity culture. And it was because it was also like a white male dominated industry, or it still is, that it was just, I could never go back. I could never go back. One, I don't think I'll be able to keep my mouth like I did then. And two, it's just, it would drive me nuts.
Which is a good thing.
The ego on a lot of the people in this industry and the air of self-importance. And I can't. I just couldn't. I could never go back. And now that I look back, it was a good experience to have because I managed to like travel a lot in that role and do a lot of things. But if I could have a do-over, I think I would choose a different publication to start with. It was awkward. It was horrible.
Shame, it sounds terrible. Like, it's hard enough leaving varsity, having to start your career, and now you have to deal with a bunch of like white men who patronize you every step of the way. Like, you're already not insecure, but you're already a bit unsure and nervous as a new young person in your field, and then to just deal with that on top of it is so cuck. Like, I can't even.
And unfortunately, you're only able to identify a toxic work environment as you get older.
Yeah, for sure.
Because we've both said now that when we were younger, we were in it and we were like, oh, this just must be like how the job is.
Yeah.
And it was awful. It was awful. But now that we've both shared our experiences,
Can I share one more that is so funny?
Yes, please do.
I started at this agency. Like, I will talk smack about this agency, like, because whenever I talk about it to people, I'm always like, this is an open secret. Like, everyone in the industry knows that this particular agency They were like renowned for not treating people well. So I started and I was super excited because this was one of the best in the country at the time. Like it was just very cool. And I remember the first month I was paying my salary so late. And I went to complain, obviously, because I had like a car and like I had to live,
Yeah.
And the payroll person just told me, now we've loaded your salary and everything. The person in charge just didn't pay you. They just didn't accept like thing. And I was like, please, can you do something about this because I need to get paid?
Surely
And
that's
payday, it's very unethical. Like the payday, I think was the 25th of the month, and I got paid like the 4th of the next month eventually.
I could never. How did you not quit? Just like
if that happened, luckily at that time, like there's no way I would have waited until the 4th. Like I would be calling you every single hour asking me, have you released my salary? Have you released my salary?
Yeah.
But because I was so new, I was so happy to be at this agency, I just didn't say anything. And I'm just like, bro, oh, shame. But like, we've come out on the other side, kind of.
Yeah. And I think I think it's important to mention that there are also like other signs of a toxic work environment. Like a lot of work environments are cliquey as well, which is very toxic. And it's like the office gossip. It can also be toxic towards another person. And I think it's important to note that just because you feel, you or me or just any individual that feels that the environment isn't like toxic for them, it doesn't mean that it's not toxic for another person.
That is so true.
It isn't like a blanket thing. Like as I'm not going to give an example actually, but let's hypothetically say that you were having a really bad time at work. I mean, we don't work together anymore, but let's say we did still work together. And you were having a really bad time and the environment was really toxic for you. I can easily say that it hasn't been toxic for me. So we can't assume that our lived experience is everyone's lived experience, is what I'm trying to say.
Yes, that's very true.
Just give me 1 second to cough. Damn it.
And I think, like, just to your point there, it's very easy to point out when a work environment is toxic when you can identify that certain people get treated better than others who are going through similar experiences. Like hypothetically, if I, Kelly, was going through, let's say, a family responsibility issue, and I would voice like, hey, I need X amount of time off because I have this family issue that's demanding a lot of time. Let's just say like I'm going through divorce, for example, because that's like far removed from what like me or you are going through. Like I'm going through divorce. I need time off because custody, mediation, whatever. And I get told, oh, you need to figure this out. It's not our responsibility. Sorry. But then Kelly, you are also going through a divorce and you go and you say, listen, need some time off, like you know how it goes, blah, 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 blah. But you have a close relationship with the person who manages that kind of time off and they go, I understand, you've told me how things are going. Yeah. Take all the time you need. Like when you can see people getting treated differently for similar situations, that's when you know an environment is toxic, because why are things not impartial? Why is there no objectivity in the situation? You know?
That's so true.
There are times where I was in work environments, I've been treated better than someone who's going through the same thing as me. And I think to myself, wow, like I've been given so much grace. I've been told, take the time you need, you know, we are here for you. And someone else gets told, well, SOS figured out. It doesn't make you feel as proud to be part of a team that does that, you know?
Yeah. And I can imagine that as the person that is favored, there's a sense of like guilt that also comes.
Yeah.
Like you feel very guilty that you are able to get certain things, or you are given like certain privileges and others aren't. But I mean, this is all hypothetical, obviously.
This is all hypothetical. And oh my word, I saw something on TikTok. This is something I think I saw in every freaking episode, which was which was so true, because there was a certain work environment that I was in at some point where I didn't feel like I wanted to be friends with the people I worked with. It was nothing personal. I just didn't gel with people. I did my job like the end. And this woman made a TikTok saying that she had a performance appraisal for the year. And they gave her like, 5 out of 5 were like stunning for all the things she does work-wise. But they marked her down because she wasn't like as sociable as they'd like her to be. And there again, I'm like, why do we need to create this environment where work is family? Why is work family, guys? Like, it doesn't have to be family. If you want to come to work every day, clock in at 9, clock out at 5, your job is done, I feel like that should be fine.
Yeah, I don't feel like being sociable should be a KPI rating.
It shouldn't be, but I think even if it's not an official KPI rating, I feel like certain companies do expect you to be chummy with them to a certain degree. Like, be my chummy, tell me what's going on in your life. Who are you dating? Who are you seeing? Personally, I don't mind sharing those things, but there are certain people who don't, and that's also fine. And they shouldn't feel, or the company shouldn't treat them like, oh, you're not much of a team player. It's not about being a team player. If they are ticking the boxes of what they need to do, that's fine. They don't have to tell you what they're doing this weekend if they don't want to. You know what I mean? Exactly. I'm not talking about Norse people in general. Like, just don't use Norse.
I know. I'm talking about like private people, or like what do you call
like introverts.
Thank you. I couldn't get to the word now. I was like, I thought, what are those people who are like more inner or more on the inside?
So that people who are more on the inside, let them be on the inside.
Exactly. They can be on the inside.
They don't want to know about my dog that's on vitamin K for the next 30 days. Like, they don't really care, and that's also fine.
Yeah, exactly. I have a question for you, Gulden. Let's say you are in a toxic work environment and you want to get out, but you can't because you can't find another job, and you can't just resign because you need the money. How would you do something like that? Like, how would you cope in a toxic, or what are your coping mechanisms in a situation like that?
I would say for me personally, what really helped when I realized, like, okay, I need to get out of here. I can't right now. I need to like formulate my plan. What am I going to do in like the months leading up to it? I would just literally treat it as a clock in, clock out situation. So like, protect your peace above all else as much as you can. So I just wouldn't go above and beyond anymore. I would not work late, like refuse. I'd give what I can and do my best in my allocated hours. And that's it. Like, I know it's not nice to look at, a job that you enjoy as something that you need to like clock watch. But if it gets to the point where it's affecting your mental health, you feel like it's a toxic space, you need to leave, clock watch. If you need to clock in at 10 and leave at 6, do exactly that. Do what you can do and then leave. I also don't feel like you should speak to too many people about it. Just decide with yourself, like, this is what I'm going to do. And just slowly detach and don't let it overwhelm you as much as before. Like, that's what I have done, and it's worked for me before. What do you do?
I don't know, to be honest with you. I don't have anything that I necessarily do. I think if I was in a toxic work environment and I wanted to get out and there was no way out, or I couldn't get hired like by another company, or I didn't want to work for another company, I would look at what I could do for myself. And so maybe like give myself like a set amount of time, let's say a year, just a year, or like 18 months or whatever, and say, by this time next year, I want to be able to have my own like 3 clients and be able to at least like support myself in that way. And then at least you're giving yourself a set amount of time and something to look forward to, because I mean, if you're in a toxic work environment, I think you need something to look forward to. And you need to feel like there's a way out. But you obviously have to put in the work to make that way out if it's your own business or you're freelancing after that. But I think I would need to set a deadline for myself and also have a plan for after the deadline. I can't just accept
And
it.
also, like Lucy Lou said, like you need to at some point, like I wish to get to this point, like you need to always have fuck your money. Like if you get to the point where you are like, you know what, fuck you, I can't, you need that fuck you money. Even if it's like 3 months, that can cover expenses. Like having fuck your money is so powerful, and it can help you prevent a lot of damage to your mental health. Which I know we live in South Africa, it's a dream to have fuck your money. But if you can have it, if you can, it's absolutely like amazing.
I'm gonna play the lotto later.
I played the lotto last week and I didn't win, so I'm concluding that it's a myth.
It probably is a myth. It probably is a myth. Any other last words or tips or advice that you'd like to give about toxic work environments? I don't have much more advice. This is I'm like counting the jobs, all the jobs I've had. The first job was the one I spoke about, which was a little bit toxic, which I only realized actually getting out. The second one was great because I had a wonderful manager. The third one was okay. It wasn't. If I think about it, it was kind of toxic because there was a lot of a lot of cattiness, which is toxic. It was never towards me. And I also, admittedly, because you want to feel like a part of the crew or the clan or whatever, you sort of lean into that every now and then.
Yeah, you play the game when you have to. I mean, it's like a necessity. Like,
Yeah.
How is it necessity? It's like out of necessity, what I'm trying to say.
I mean, I'm not proud of myself for it. And then there's this job, which I'm in now for almost 5 years, which I'm fine with, to be honest. And if fine's a good word, but I'm fine. I'm fine.
You're fine.
Yeah. So I don't have much more advice other than if you find yourself in a toxic work environment and a toxic situation at work, if there is someone you can escalate it to, then escalate it to. If you are lucky enough to have an HR department, then escalate it to your HR department. Escalate it to your HR department. If you don't have an HR department, speak to a manager that you trust and follow those procedures and due course.
Yeah.
And look, a toxic work environment is also sexual harassment, which obviously needs to be escalated to HR and much higher than that. And it's
listen, I'm going to the police.
Yeah, and it's like abuse. Like we have colleagues who worked in an environment where they were literally shouted at by their bosses for stupid minor things, and it was so that is also a toxic work environment, and it's difficult when you work for a private company. It's privately owned.
Yeah,
it's the owner or the owner's bra who's shouting at you. But if you can escalate it, escalate it. Do you have any other advice or anything?
I love that advice you gave. I think one more thing I will say is always watch out for the benefits that a company gives you. I'm not talking about medical aid or pension or whatever. There's small little things like they'll offer you to keep you around in the office a little bit longer. So it won't be big things. It'll be like, oh, we'll cover the small little costs for you. There will be food if you want to stay a bit longer. We don't those small things just to keep you in. Watch out for those things and watch out how a company reacts when you ask for the things that really will add benefit to your life, like medical aid or like mental health leave or period leave or more maternity leave. Watch how they answer that compared to a foosball table or an open bar or a free lunch. That I think is something very important to look out for.
That is very true. And you gave me a topic idea for a future episode. We need to talk about periods and the way it actually affects your life, your day-to-day life.
And also for sorry to break your word, a fun thing that we could do an episode. I think we can invite someone, literally anyone, to talk about this. Is that childhood memory holiday thing. Just a session where we laugh and talk about childhood memes and how much we have actually in common. On TikTok, everyone says, so we all actually basically live the same life. We even just have the same experiences. I think that'll be a fun, light-hearted thing. But periods, for sure.
And just how life-changing it is, as in for certain women, it's actually you can't actually get out of bed some mornings. It's so bad. But anyway, that is a topic for another day, and that is definitely something I want to talk about. But on that note, I think we will end it here. If anyone has any other advice or anything you want to discuss around toxic work environments, you know where to find us on Instagram and Facebook at Brown Girls Guide Pod and on Twitter at BGG Pod, or you could email us on info@browngirlsguide.co.za. And on that note, have a lovely evening further, or day, or whatever time you are listening to this, everyone. Our mommies and maybe
Yes.
a few of our friends. But have a wonderful day further, and we will catch up soon again. Bye.
Absolutely. Bye.